Hello everyone. This is a lecture on the poem Small Towns and the River by Mamang Dai for UG students of 6th semester in Bardhaman University. This lecture has been prepared and delivered by Bonushree Majhi, Assistant Professor of English at Memari College. Let us first get acquainted with the poet. Mamang Dai is a poet and novelist writing in English from northeastern region of India. She was born on 23rd February 1957 at Pasighat, East Siang district of Arunachal Pradesh in Adi tribal community. Her parents are Matin Dai and Odi Dai. She completed her schooling from Pine Mount School in Shillong, Meghalaya and earned her bachelor degree in English from Guwahati University, Assam. Dai was the first woman from her state to be selected for IAS, Indian Administrative Service. However, she left her job at the administrative service and pursued a career in journalism. Dai was correspondent with newspapers like Hindustan Times, The Telegraph and The Sentinel. She also worked in TV and radio. She has led a very busy professional life. She was the former secretary of Itanagar Press Club. Currently, she is the president of Arunachal Pradesh Union of Working Journalists. She also worked with Worldwide Fund for Nature in the Eastern Himalaya Biodiversity Hotspots program. In 2011, she was appointed as a member of Arunachal Pradesh State Public Service Commission. A long-time member of the Northeast Writers Forum, she has featured in several national and international platforms to promote the disappearing traditions of her state in the face of modernity and to give voice to its people through the imaginative space of her prose and poetry. Presently, she lives in Itanagar. Her works, she has written exclusively in English, even though she is bilingual, but her mother tongue Adi is a non-script language, so she has written everything in English. She has produced over the years several poetry collections, 3 novels so far, and a couple of non-fictional works and illustrated texts of folklores. Her poetry collection includes River Poems, published in 2004, The Balm of Time, published in 2008. Hambrilza's Loom appeared in 2014, and in 2014 again came Midsummer Survival Lyrics. Novels. She has written 3 novels so far. The Legend of Pensam, published in 2006, Stupid Cupid, published in 2008, and in 2014 was published The Black Hill. For this book, she won Sahitya Akademi Award in 2017. Her non-fictional work, Arunachal Pradesh, The Hidden Land, published in 2003, won her state's Ferrier Elwin Prize in the same year. This book documented the culture and customs of Arunachal's different tribal communities. She is also a recipient of the Padma Shri Award. She won this award in the year 2011. The 2 illustrated texts of folklores compiled by Dai are The Sky Queen and Once Upon a Moontime. Now let us discuss the salient features of Dai's writing. In the beginning of her career as a writer, Dai wrote lyrical verses keeping self in the focus, but she gradually veered towards collective experience of communities in small towns and remote villages of Arunachal. Her poetic imagination and expression both are influenced by the land of dawn-lit mountains. The Arunachal Pradesh, this term translates into land of dawn-lit mountains, the place where she was born and brought up. Natural beauty of quaint mountains, meandering rivers, luxuriant greenery weave the sensuous structure of her poem. But this beautiful landscape hides the pain of a long-drawn political upheaval. This turmoil has been going on for quite some time. This socio-political condition of war-ravaged land is portrayed often in her work, and she portrays it very truthfully. Political insurgency, conflict between the state powers and the rebels, and the common people who bore the consequences often appear in her writing. Another important feature of her work would be the extensive use of mythological elements of culture, tradition and legends of Arunachal Pradesh and its communities. Dai once said that I am a tribal and the geography, landscape, our myths, stories, all this has shaped my thoughts. So make it a point to remember her tribal identity, as it is integral to the poetic self. That has been brought up in a culture that worships nature. Nature is associated with every aspect of their life. So it is no wonder that nature occupies a very important space in her work. And it is not just the sensuous beauty, even though it is an important feature of her work, but also there are other important dimensions that come out in her portrayal of nature. First of all, like in Wordsworth, in Dye's portrayal, nature reflects her pantheistic philosophy. It has her treatment of her nature has this mystic touch in it. Nature is a mythological presence, as if it is a primordial deity standing witness to the evolution of human civilization, its rise and fall. Nature works as a bridge that connects past, present, and future together. Nature is also symbolic of the tribal way of life. Nature is intertwined with the collective psyche of these tribal communities. It reflects their joy, sorrow, fear, hope. Thus, the binary between this binary of human and non-human does not exist in Dye. Another important feature of Dye's poetry would be its beautiful lyricism. And for all these traits, she has often been considered a neo-romantic because these features of her work share affinity with romanticism. Now, what is neo-romanticism? It's nothing but the continuation or the revival of romanticism. It does not have any different, any separate features from romanticism because it is a continuation of it. Its features are appreciation and idealization of nature, a criticism of the modern society which considers itself alienated from nature, extensive use of mythology, a fascination with the antiquity or the past, emphasis on the free play of imagination, idealized childhood, celebration of primitive man, subjectivity, assertion of self. In Dye's case, the self is both collective and individual. And of course, lyricism. As all these traits were incorporated in Dye's poetry, she is considered a neo-romantic. As we read the poem, we shall understand it much better. Now to our text. Small Towns and the River is a part of this poetry collection, River Poems, published by Writers' Workshop in Kolkata in 2004. Neo-romantic in spirit, this poem has autobiographical details of ethnographic importance. It deals with the life of tribal communities negotiating between their ancient traditional culture and inevitable modern changes in the middle of violent political unrest. The hometown is Pasighat. The small towns in the title refers to the small towns like poet's hometown Pasighat by the river Siang. The river in the title is of course the river Siang. This poem has been occasioned by an event of personal loss. The death of poet's aunt, untimely death of the younger sister of her mother occasioned this poem. Let us read out the poem. Small towns always remind me of death. My hometown lies calmly amidst the trees. It is always the same, in summer or winter, with the dust flying or the wind howling down the gorge. So the poem starts on a dark note, an individual mourning in the shadow of death. And it's important to note that she uses plural, which indicates plural in the form small towns. It indicates that this sense of loss is experienced collectively. Even though the poem is occasioned by personal grief, It finds that this sense of loss is not unique to their hometown or unique to our poet, but it is actually felt, experienced collectively. The situation is similar, their fate is actually similar to the fate of all other small towns like theirs. There is a sense of solidarity, of shared heritage and culture and present experience. It might seem paradoxical when we find that these small towns lying calmly amidst the trees remind her of death. It is paradoxical if we read out like that, but you have to understand that their condition is not that of idyllic serenity amid this beautiful landscape, but marked by political unrest. Northeast region of India has been a site of political unrest for a very long time now. Conflict of interest between states and central government, natives and migrants, insurgency have complicated the situation. The violent clashes between the army and the insurgents have become quite common, and they often lead to massive bloodshed. And there is another point, back to this morbid thought or the concept of death. Death is not just physical death, not just the human loss of these human lives. Death also signifies the fast disappearing ancient culture of these tribal communities. Remember, these are not villages. This is a point that you must remember. These are not villages, but towns. It means modernity and urbanization has already come into the picture. It is always the same, in summer or winter, with the dust flying or the wind howling down the gorge. In contrast to the transient human life, nature remains the same, immutable, unchangeable. Its natural, its eternal rhythm can be felt through change in season or blowing wind. When human world is in stagnant gloom, nature is vibrant, vigorous, endowed with movement. Dai uses these beautiful visual and auditory images with the dust flying or the wind howling down the gorge to describe this natural rhythm. Just the other day, someone died. In the dreadful silence, we wept, looking at the sad wreaths of tube roses. Life and death, life and death. Only the rituals are permanent. It appears from this line, just the other day someone died, it appears that the death has become a common occurrence these days. This is also a reference to the tense political atmosphere of that place. This frequent violent clashes between the army and the insurgents that often lead to bloodshed. So death has become an everyday matter these days. And this dreadful silence can be interpreted as the curfew imposed after one of such violent clashes. Looking at the sad wreath of tube roses, life and death, only the rituals are permanent. Now, humans are caught in this vicious cycle. This vicious cycle of birth and death goes on and on. Whereas life is temporary, traditional rituals, just like nature, are permanent. These ancient rituals have been in existence from time immemorial. They have been passed down from one generation to another for thousands of years now. Thus, they possess a sort of permanence in contrast to the human transient life, that means temporary life. As we proceed with the poem, we shall know more about these rituals. The river has a soul. In the summer, it cuts through the land like a torrent of grief. Sometimes I think it holds its breath, seeking a land of fish and stars. To better understand this stanza, to fully appreciate this stanza and the following stanzas, we have to take a look at the tribal belief system of Arunachal. This belief system is based on the pantheistic philosophy called Doni Polo. Doni Polo literally means sun and moon. Doni means sun and Polo means moon. It refers to this pantheistic philosophy followed by the tribal communities of Tani group. This is a group of 26 tribal communities of Arunachal and more than 100 subclans who believe that they have descended from the same ancient father, Abo Tani. Abo means father and Tani means man. According to this philosophy, everything has a soul. Every being and non-being is the physical manifestation of a supreme deity, or as Mamang Dai, our poet, likes to interpret it, a manifestation of the world spirit. They worship their rivers, mountains, trees. So they do believe that river has a soul. It is a sentient spiritual being, a living, breathing presence among them. It can feel their pain, sorrow, fears. It can empathize with them and it empathizes with them. River feels this pain of lost lives, this exploitation of nature, not just human life but also non-human forms, and the exploitation of nature, erosion of culture and lost traditions. These things also sadden this river, and that's why in poet's imagination the river becomes a torrent of grief. The grief-stricken river wants to escape to the primordial state of being at some early stage of creation. A land of fish and stars might refer to this to a primordial state at the beginning of the creation. This brings us to the fascinating world of myth, memory and imagination. Tribal languages are mostly non-script, so the tribal literature has survived through oral tradition. Their oral tradition has nurtured them through the centuries, and this literature preserved in memory is collectively called Abang. Abangs have many parts. They tell various stories recounting the myth of creation, stories of evolution, history of human civilization, etc. Their beliefs, rituals, customary practices have all been preserved and passed down from one generation to another through oral literature. In these mythological stories, it is a common belief, it is a popular theory that the water has memory. River can memorize things. River knows everything. When we read this next stanza, the influence of these mythological stories will become more apparent. The river has a soul. It knows, stretching past the town from the first drop of rain to dry earth and mist on the mountain tops. The river knows the immortality of water. It is a popular belief among these tribes. Water is immortal. River is like that, a primordial deity that has seen everything and recorded everything from the time immemorial, from the very first day of the creation to the present day. And through the water memory, it's a popular idea that water retains memory. Everything that has ever been diluted in the water leaves its trace, and water retains it. So once something comes into contact with the water, it will stay there, stay in the water, in its memory forever. River is the guardian, the curator of the history of human civilization. Now to the next stanza. A shrine of happy pictures marks the days of childhood. Small towns grow with anxiety for the future. The dead are placed pointing west. When the soul rises, it will walk into the golden east, into the house of the sun. The childhood is being idealized here. A shrine of happy pictures marks the days of childhood. One of our poet's neo-romantic inclinations, of course. When present is fraught with pain, she longs for the days of innocence, a shrine in her memory, an ideal state of perfect happiness, not yet tainted by sorrow or anxiety of this present day. These small towns now, they grow with anxiety for the future. The past is a happy place, but it's a different place. It's in the past. Things have changed here. In the present, things are very different from this ideal state of happiness. They have fallen from that state of innocence, and now their horrid reality makes them worried about their future. In these days marked by growing anxiety and morbidity, she finds hope. Our poet finds hope in the ancient rituals, the traditional rituals, like their last rites. The dead are placed pointing north. When the soul rises, it will walk into the golden east, into the house of the sun. So it is a custom with the tribal people to place their dead ones, pointing west. They believe that when they rise, when the soul rises, it will face the east, and then it can ascend to heaven. Golden East, walking into the golden East means the walking into the heaven, that eternal life, the house of sun. It obviously refers to the heaven. These old rituals, these mythological stories, they are not just fantastic tales recounted for the amusement of a young audience. The symbols embedded in them celebrate the sanctity of human life. In the cool bamboo restored in sunlight, life matters like this. In small towns by the river, we all want to walk with the gods. Finally, the poem ends on an optimistic note, with the speaker suggesting that even in the midst of unrest, violence, bewildering changes, confusing changes, these tribal communities can survive. This civilization can survive by drawing sustenance from their age-old customs, cultures, spirituality, rituals, which believe in the sanctity of human lives. They validate human efforts and believe in the immortality of soul. These beliefs alone, this adherence to these beliefs alone can alleviate the anxiety in this present condition. Now the title of the poem. When we started, we went directly to the text but did not discuss the title, because now that we're through with the poem, we can understand it better. It is symbolic in nature. The title is symbolic in nature. It signifies the life of tribal communities straddling their ancient traditional culture and recently arrived modernity in the middle of political unrest marked by violence and bloodshed. Now to the other stylistic aspects of this poem, the structure. The poem is written in free verse. There are 7 stanzas of varying lengths ending in a couplet. However, there are some internal rhymes in the poem, like summer, winter, flying, howling in the first stanza, with the dust flying or the wind howling down the gorge. Repetitions and alliterations have been used. The river has a soul has been used as a refrain in third and fourth stanza. Several phrases and words are repeated, like life and death in the second stanza, and in the third stanza the word sometimes is repeated. In the third stanza there is seeking a land of fish and stars, an instance of alliteration. Other figures of speech used maybe personification. The river is personified. Sad wreath of tube roses in the second stanza is a beautiful instance of transferred epithet. The poem contains some beautiful imagery from the world of nature. The howling wind, the mist on the mountain tops, the land of fish and river, the golden east, the cool bamboo restored in sunlight. All these images have remarkable sensory appeal. They're beautiful auditory, visual, and tactile images that adds to the beauty of this poem. The last segment of this lecture will focus on the symbolism of this poem. River is used as the central symbol. It is the symbol of the ancient traditional belief system, their myth and culture. Mountains and trees, even though they never come to the front, they also symbolize the tribal culture which is inextricably intertwined with nature in all its aspects. And as I mentioned earlier, the title itself is symbolic, the theme of this poem.